Good afternoon. Special election. In modern presidential contest. Likely state by state, but in Texas, eligible early voters can begin dropping off their ballots this month. Some of the state's largest counties have already set off multiple drop-off sites. Harris County, home to the city of Houston and some 4 million residents, must now close 11 drop-off locations, the Houston Chronicle reported. We have some breaking news coming into the newsroom. Hope Hicks, one of the U.S. presidential Donald Trump closest ally, has tested positive coronavirus. Hicks, who serves as a counselor to the president and traveled with him to a Wednesday rally, tested positive. It's the closest aide to Trump to test positive so far. Hicks traveled with the president multiple times this week, including on Marine One, the presidential helicopter, for a Minnesota rally Wednesday, and a briefly served as the White House communication director and rejoined the administration this year ahead of the election. Life to normal in spring, a group of leading scientists has warned. The vaccine often seen as the holy grail that would end the pandemic, but a report from researchers has brought together by the Royal Society said we need to be realistic about what the vaccine could achieve and when. They said that restriction may need to be gradually relaxed and it could take up to a year to roll the vaccine out. More than 200 vaccines to protect against the virus are being developed by scientists around the world, and the process is taking place at unprecedented speed. A vaccine offered great hope for potentially ending the pandemic, but we know that the history of the vaccine development is littered with lots, said Dr. Advisor, that some people may get a vaccine this year and mass vaccine may start early next year. However, the Royal Society report warned it will be a long process. Even when the vaccine is available, it doesn't mean within a month everyone's going to be vaccinated. We're talking about 6 months, 9 months, a year, said Professor Nellie Shaw, head of the chemical engineer at Imperial College London. There is not a question of life suddenly returning to normal in March. Multiple students from St. Michael's School in Calgary has been suspended after a portion of a conversation between a group of black students and their principal was shared online. The audio recording in question catches the principal uttering a racial slur. How come it's okay for you to say the N-word? Principal Anderson asked the group of black students questioning their word was used so used in a situation Sandra. The use of the word is just generally unacceptable for anyone. Adore, an anti-racism activist and coach in Calgary, said this type of response illustrates the need for more anti-racial training in schools. Oppressed population is oppression. People on the use of the term schools code of conduct. I definitely understand that there is, the possibility that is coming across that students are being disciplined for using the word, for that word, said Bartle. But at the end of the day, they're only being disciplined for having recorded the conversation, taking clips out of content, and posting that conversation online. So it's unfortunate that the topic of negative racial term is the focus of the conversation. The student code of conduct states that making, possessing, selling, accessing audio, visual, or audiovisual recording of any individual without the individual consent, unless the recording is in unauthorized by the school district. To 35 points, 20 cents, or 20 points. The TSX was up 63 points. When we come back, the overdose crisis, and we'll back on the Boland Report. people. For those affected by the overdose crisis, including advocating for drug reform, please welcome Daniel to the show. We're right back. Show, let's walk him to on.
I can see myself, but I have no audio of anything else. So hopefully we're okay. Good old technical difficulties. Isn't that great, eh? You let me know if we're, or you ask me a question, and if I you.
Okay. So as we are both from British Columbia, oh, one part. Can you just introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm a project coordinator in Langley, which is outside of the city of Vancouver.
in 2016. Could you explain to our viewers what's been happening over the last few years to spark the emergency of the health crisis?
Yeah, well, Eric, if we go back to the mid 90s, overdose rates in the province were fairly steady. About 250 people on average in a given year would die as a result of a fatal overdose. And then all of a sudden, that number spiked very dramatically in 2015, 2016, up to about 1,500 in that year, 2016. So is these terms of how much fentanyl was detected in overdose deaths, it was about 4%. But by 2018, we are at about 87% of overdose deaths, fentanyl is detected. So that's the driving force here. We're not talking about increased drug use. We're talking about a change in the drugs.
I have on the screen just shows the number of the drug toxins by death, correct, and the death rate per year.
Earlier in 2020, past the 2019, which 2019 we were down fatal overdoses, but we're past 1,000 already for 2020. So clearly, the numbers back up. Since
the beginning of March,
some role is taking a toll on people's states. And come March this year, 25+% of fatal overdoses happening in private residences. It's no surprise that more people are using substances alone. Well, I mean, drug enforcement is a futile effort in terms of stopping drugs entering countries. It's a waste of tax dollars. And all substances to smuggle because of its potency and is that becomes the buff of choice in terms of does that answer your question?
here we are. Can we read it?
Yeah.
Trend for the first 2 months, year over year, and then the pandemic started. What policy did the BC government cut?
has distributed tens of thousands of naloxone kits, which have saved many, many lives. And just getting those into the hands of individuals who are using substances and individuals who may be at risk of overdose has definitely played a significant role. The fact that we've been pushing the message of drug testing, getting people access to drug testing strips or drug testing facilities, safe consumption sites, things hard to capture. As long as in the drug supply, we're not going to really see dramatic decreases in overdose deaths. So while policies such as decriminalization are on the table, far enough in terms of really safe supply. Changes in their life or stop or reduce their use, and instead we are going to help them by giving them a prescription grade drug supply of opioids. That plays a role, but it's not without its complications as well.
Okay, so speaking of that, so policymakers and lawmakers in Canada and U.S. has been working on fixing the issues of this, including the safe injection site like the one downtown, low barrier homeless shelters, and most recently a safe house just opened in Vancouver for sex workers. What should policies and lawmakers do about the overdose crisis and the opiate crisis? What new laws or support systems should
you not conversation, which is because it sounds like we are going to just make drugs a free-for-all. And I don't know if we have the time to get into the complexities of a conversation about regulating drugs, but alcohol and cannabis are good examples of what can and will happen when we make the supplies regulated and safe. If you go to the liquor store and buy a bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey, you read the label, you know what is in that bottle, and you're very confident that what is in that bottle, you don't have any concerns that you're buying a product because we've regulated that. In addition, we've put that product behind a barrier in people who have easy access to cannabis, primarily one of the most popular drugs. Adult that's willing to purchase that for them. So I think that really, if we've arrived at a time in our societies where prohibition models have failed. It's very clear that we are not going to eradicate drug use, that drug enforcement in terms of stopping drugs coming into the country is a futile effort. And so it's time to take a look at new policies that consider how we can just focus on reducing the harms of drug use. So regulating is not about condoning or accepting or drug use is normal or that we should enable it in our societies. It's about learning to live with it.
Okay. In 2017, Justin Trudeau enacted the marijuana law. So we became the second country in the world to legalize or decriminalize marijuana. What's, in your opinion, how do you think that has been working in Canada?
Poorly. I think it's a process, and we're just impatient. So the black market has not gone away as quickly as the federal government would like. Most people that I talk with are still buying cannabis illegally because they can get a high quality product for a cheaper price than the government regulated stores. So, it's going to take some time for this to balance out. The transfer of power from the black market to the regulated market is something that needs to happen, but will happen slowly. And down the prices so that they are the primary supplier, and that will take some time, but we will get there.
Okay. So when we will be right back. When we come back, we're going to talk about the issues of crime and how the overdose crisis can be resolved. Welcome. Cities around North America, especially in Vancouver and Seattle, has been risen worries about the increasing issues of crime, including assaults, homeless using the streets as their washrooms, theft, break-in, and other. Or a drug court system, or a mix of both.
Well, if I can really answer that question, I mean, I crime, theft, assault, those kinds of things need to not be entirely conflated with addiction exclusively. Not to say that addiction that's a step in the right direction, but comes to violent crimes and um, and that kind of thing at the moment. Dialogue to dig into the roots that are underneath substance use and addiction so that we can start looking at those and what can really help individuals that are struggling with it, because it's not about coerced treatment. It is more about connecting with these individuals. And it that time hustling for, that they have an incredible amount of time on their hands to consider their life, to stabilize, to seek housing, perhaps to even seek employment, and to get other aspects of their life in order. And what has happened in the UK and in a more extensive program in Switzerland is that individuals that were enrolled into a program like this, over a period of time, their lives stabilized. And many of them on the heroin program tapered down or even completely tapered off to the point that they were no longer enrolled. So the idea of giving drugs to people with addictions sounds like the age-old conversation about enabling addiction, and really it's not quite that simple. It's far more complex, and we need to take a look at how we can address these issues in a progressive way that considers the individual and considers how we can connect with the individual and really take a look at their life rather than being punitive and being that we've that's a lifetime of pain and trauma and disconnection from society and from those who care and love these individuals. So we need more compassion for sure, which is not to say that we turn a blind eye to behaviors that are not acceptable within our society. So it's a complicated issue that needs a lot of conversation.
Okay, you spoke about hugely on the issue of childhood trauma and stuff, which leads me into my next point. A lot of the majority of the or a free.
Media would lead us to believe that trauma is underneath the majority of drug use, but actually the vast majority of drug use is problem free. I mean, 90+% of society, people that use drugs like alcohol or other substances, including illegal substances, they don't develop addictions, they don't lose jobs or relationships or go bankrupt. And lives without consequence. So it's important to realize this, that those that are affected by substances in such a way that they really develop problems are a small percentage, and of those that become homeless or that potential looks like is they want to pursue abstinence and a different way of life. Others may not. And so, that question is relevant and important. So I do think we need to put more services to counseling, to recovery approaches of all kinds. Pull being punitive about possession and spending time with police and justice system and courts and jails because of possession of substances, and instead take that money and then they
So, yeah, correct. So we have a minute left. We have a couple minutes left in this. Do
and addiction affects people of all walks of life. I myself spent 15 years addicted to heroin. I was never homeless. I was always housed. perhaps, that I was struggling in that way. I kept it hidden, and that was due to the intense shame and stigma that I felt as a result of my behavior, which I was not happy with. So, we need to how we think and talk about these issues. We need to consider our own towards substance use and the people. It is probably towards substance use, as well as treating people in the naloxone is at DGA Snyder, also on Facebook. I think that are moving forward in terms of our attitudes and policies towards substance use.
Thank you, Daniel, for being on the show. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the latest headlines from around the world, as well as final thoughts. We will be back, right back. Welcome back to the show. U.S. airlines have begun laying off thousands of workers after efforts to negotiate a new economic relief plan in Congress stalled. American Airlines say it has shredded 19,000 jobs, and United Airlines 13,000 jobs. The carriers badly hit by the coronavirus pandemic say they are ready to reverse the decision if more financing is found. The airlines have received billions of dollars from the federal government, Congress, to agreed aid earlier in the year as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Act, or the CARE Act. It was conditional that the carriers did not lay off workers until October 1st. Airlines around the world has been hit by massive fall in demand caused by the pandemic and the lockdowns. In a letter to staff announcing the layoff, American Airlines Chief Executive Officer Doug Parker said, "I am extremely sorry we have reached this outcome. It is not what you all deserve." On Wednesday, United Airlines and the management employees said it was imploring our elected leaders to reach a compromise, get a deal done now, and save jobs. Turkey and Greece have set up a military hotline to try to reduce the risk of clashes in the Mediterranean, where the two are locked in a row over energy, resources, and maritime borders. The move was announced by the NATO military bloc, of which both countries are members. Tensions rose this year when Turkey sent a research ship to a disputed area in the Mediterranean Sea. It comes as the EU leaders met to discuss the bloc forging ties with Turkey. Turkey is a candidate for the membership of the European Union, but efforts have stalled, with leaders criticizing Turkey's record on human rights and the rule of law, in particular in the wake of the 2016 failed military coup. But Turkey remains an important partner for EU. Turkey hosts millions of migrants stuck in a deal with the European Union that limit the numbers arriving in Greece. The announcement of the hotline followed talks between Turkey and Greece at the NATO headquarters in Brussels. I welcome the establishment of a military deconfrontation mechanism achieved through constructive engagement of Greece and Turkey. Both value NATO allies, said NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg. This safety mechanism can help to create the space for a diplomatic effort to address the underlying dispute, and we stand ready to develop it further. Such mechanism enable direct communication between two sides. Russia and U.S. set one up during the Cold War, and it's been in operation ever since. On August 2nd, Turkey and Greek warship collided in the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Since then, tension has eased somewhat, with the Turkish research vessels leaving the area last month, and both sides saying they were willing and prepared to resume talks. When I come back, I have some final thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement and what should be done about police and reforms. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. I have some final thoughts. Black Lives Matter movement and the organization as well. In 2013, the Black Lives Matter was formed after a death of a black African American by police in the United States. And since then, multiple protests and riots has broken out because of police brutality and police-involved shootings. One of the things that is hugely affected this year was the whole Black Lives Matter protest and some of the values of the Black Lives organization. Don't get me wrong, I support reforming the police, holding police officers accountable for their actions. What happened to George Floyd was wrong. On the Memorial Day long weekend, George Floyd, by 4 officers, including one who was standing on his knee. Basically, my biggest value is that people should respect each other, and especially the riots that have been happening. I get that the riots happen. I get that protests happen. I get the police brutality, but destroying other people's businesses is wrong. I'm going to show you a clip from earlier in the year from one of the cities in America. Just to warn you before I show this clip, this video clip does contain strong language that may be hard for a younger audience to listen to. Viewer discretion is advised. As you see in that clip, that was hard to watch. I know that was hard. I believe in value. I believe in unity. I believe in respect. But what happened in that clip was wrong. The attacking of people, for example, in many cities around America, people are just sitting down, eating their dinner, lunch at a restaurant, at their local restaurant, which they're trying to survive due to this pandemic. Just going into the restaurant and saying to force people to raise their fists, the Black Lives symbol fist, like the raise, is wrong. Under the U.S. Constitution, Americans have the right just to freely express themselves. But they also have the right to peacefully protest. And what happened here is wrong. To see this guy bloody and injured due to these violent protests. And also some of the issues I have with the Black Lives organization, not the movement. I support reform of the police. I do believe in holding police officers accountable and firing or removing the bad ones. To all the police officers who are currently working, I respect you. I respect your jobs. But I want you to fight for yourself. Tensions. If you see anybody who's being racist or just saying racist slurs, I implore you, just report them. Just because racism, bigotry, xenophobia, homophobia is wrong. We should, as a society, be respectful of each other's views, regardless. Whether you're a Biden supporter, whether you're a Trudeau supporter, or whether you're a Trump supporter, love and unite with each other. Fight for the same cause. Work with each other. And try to unite on a better cause. Some of the issues I disagree with is defunding the police movement, which will cause a spike in crime. For example, in Seattle, New York City, Chicago, Minneapolis, crime has spiked after city officials have removed portions of the police budget. For example, homicides, violent crimes in and New York City are spiking year over year. Even though the pandemic has been hard on everyone, defunding the police is not the right thing to do. Reforming is the right thing to do. We know that this year has been hard for people. We know that the whole pandemic, the whole racial injustice has been hard. But we should unite and try to fight the sin. I condemn the neo-fascists, but also the alt-right groups as well. What happened in Charlottesville in 2017 was wrong, and I condemn that. People who use violence for their cause, to burn down buildings, businesses, regardless of whether they're owned by a white or a person of color. Burning down other people's property is wrong. And we should all condemn that, regardless of your political views. Beating others because they don't agree with your views or they disagree with some of the issues is wrong. Regardless of your values, regardless of your belief, we should love each other. And this goes for all things. I want you to thank you for watching the Boland Report. And we hope you had an awesome evening watching this. As always, see you on. We won't be airing the Boland Report tomorrow just because of things. We just have to kind of upgrade the studio. We will be back on Monday evening at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Eastern. As always, visit WNewsNetwork.com for the latest news, weather, sports, and the latest headlines. We thank you for watching.